I'm your host Rahul Sehgal. Our guest is Kalpesh. Kalpesh is the founder and managing director of Skinnovation Private Limited, one of India's leading aesthetic and corrective dermatology companies. How he introduces global innovations to the regional market and how he balances high-tech innovation. It's going to be a smart, bold, and curious conversation.
It was a challenging time for us. Started my career when I was just 20. Pharmaceutical was one domain and VLCC like centers was just emerging at that moment of time. However, the early players were very unorganized. It was not about the selling the device, but what happens to those devices. If the device breaks down, how soon they can recuperate. So I know to give them something which they are looking forward in a much organized and professional manner. In India, we are just sitting on a tip of an iceberg, and today, the world is shrinking because of this internet and connectivity. Because whatever is good in UK might not be good in India.
Everyone is looking for a glass skin these days.
Relatively easy to get a glass skin in Korean skin.
Yeah, and I think the Korean series are helping out these businesses as well.
Not only Korea, but other Asian skins also.
Like, how do you ensure the device developed abroad delivers results in Indian market?
In our skin type, we have been doing a lot of research on this because glass skin was trending. But in our skin is thicker than those, population. Anything which is going to stay onto the skin, and particularly the top layer which is called epidermis, we need to consider all those potential side effects, and the doctors are very well aware of it. People still don't take skin very seriously. If you're going through lack of sleep, it will be shown onto your skin. The safety standards are very well established.
So without a further ado, let's get started. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host Rahul Sehgal. In today's episode, we are diving into innovation and entrepreneurship in India's aesthetic and corrective dermatology devices sector. Our guest is Kalpesh, founder and managing director of Skinnovation, a company known for bringing cutting edge aesthetic and corrective dermatology technologies to India while keeping a strong focus on safety. We will hear about Kalpesh's journey in building a dermatology tech venture, how he introduces global innovations to the regional market, and how he balances high tech innovation. It's going to be a smart, bold, and curious conversation with a sprinkle of light humor along the way. So, without a further ado, let's get started. Hi, Kalpesh. Welcome to the show.
Hi Rahul, hi everyone.
Kalpesh is the founder and managing director of Skinnovation Private Limited, one of India's leading aesthetic and corrective dermatology company, which is established in 2011 with nearly 3 decades of industry experience. Kalpesh has dedicated his career to bridging global innovation with regional access in aesthetic and corrective dermatology. Skinnovation's mission is to introduce advanced devices, premium dermocosmetics to the Indian market, enabling doctors to offer safe and effective treatments with state of art technology. As our audience know, our podcast is divided into 3 segments, and each segment will ask some difficult questions and some questions for fun. The first chapter is origin story and motivation. So, Kalpesh, tell us about your early days, your schooling, and higher education. And we would like to know how you ended up on this journey.
Obviously, it was a challenging childhood. We belong to a very humble background with 2 siblings around, and lost my father at an early age. So the responsibility was on my mom, and the way I think from there onwards we started getting those grit and determination, endurance from her, which eventually helped me in my future professional career. So it was a challenging time for us then. I don't know about how you are aligned to the Mumbai requirements. 80%, 70% of the Mumbai stays in tenements. And we were also been born and brought up in one of the, the chawl culture, which made us learn a lot related to barter systems, related to critical management through real life situations. And then eventually I was part of convent school till matriculation, eventually did BSc graduation in chemistry. Although the field what we are into requires more of physics, but then at that moment of time I pursued chemistry, and then started my career when I was just 20 as a medical representative. At that moment of time, pharmaceutical medical representative was known as a noble profession, and we used to call upon doctors. The first organization which I joined was GlaxoSmithKline. So my love affair started with dermatology since then. This was the Millennium batch, Y2K batch, year 2000. 3 years of medical rep hardship, eventually became district manager Galderma. Galderma was a French multinational, a joint venture between Nestle and L'Oreal in during that time. And we were initial contributors for the brand called Cetaphil, which is a household name today in India as well as globally, and apart from other research products certainly. So there I started creating that cord between me and a dermatology and a dermatologist. At that moment of time, India was an evolving market. Unlike maybe UK, it's been always culturally very sound in terms of aesthetic and corrective dermatology, but it was a good initial days of Indian dermatology. And then became eventually sales manager for Galderma. So this was the journey, till Galderma sales manager.
Interesting. You mentioned some of the experience with GSK Cetaphil in the early 2000s. There was also a company VLCC was also working, if my knowledge is correct. How does the experience align with GSK, VLCC, Cetaphil, and other companies? Like, was that the initial starting phase in the aesthetics and dermatology, or they were building a culture and awareness was starting?
Okay. So GSK was always a big, huge multinational company. I mean, there will be hardly any individual in India which must have not used GSK products. I'm not talking specifically dermatology. I'm talking about the overall health. So it was a huge pharmaceutical company. And when I was talking about the Galderma, it was the brand called Cetaphil. So it was basically a cleanser. Okay. At that moment of time, liquid cleanser was like a unknown charter for a lot of Indians. And then to convince those to get it prescribed through dermatologists was a huge task. But company had a vision, and today Cetaphil is a household name. As far as VLCC concerned, as you rightly said, VLCC was among the first clinics or so-called centers where VLCC started talking about slimming centers. They started showcasing that there is something which can be done with your body if you intend to, and they had it. So pharmaceutical was one domain, and VLCC like centers was just emerging at that moment of time.
As you mentioned that you had the challenging upbringing. So looking, what were the biggest challenges you faced, and what were the learnings you can connect from the initial days when launching Skinnovation, and how did you overcome them or stayed motivated?
Yeah, so as I said, my love affair started with dermatology. I have not done anything more than selling dermatologicals all this 25, 26 years. So, post Galderma or during those sales manager stint with Galderma, I realized that there is another industry which is also flourishing. There is an utility which is required by a dermatology segment or a fraternity to build their practices. Because what we were selling was only topical preparation. Just to, put it across in a very layman language, those are the creams and ointments a physician recommends you. So this it's a skincare products basically. Okay, through those pharmaceutical companies like GSK and Galderma. But I also realized that there is another industry which is selling those capital devices, which are called lasers and energy-based devices, which will be, kind of a future in Indian aesthetic and corrective dermatology. However, the early players were very unorganized, since they were not coming from a professional background like say pharmaceutical or any other selling. It was very unorganized. They were getting into the business, but they were not covering all those important fundamentals. And because these are capital equipment devices, the word service is very, very important. So it's not only about selling those devices, which they were doing it because there were very few players, and it was a kind of a growing demand then, very, very small niche size market. But the word service, it was not about the selling the device, but what happens to those devices once the customer buys them, whether they are looked after well, whether the customer, in this case, it is a doctor, a dermatologist, or a plastic surgeon, how they are going to train them for the Indian requirement. God forbid, if the device breaks down, how soon they can recuperate. So this was the major challenge, and I thought personally that there was a lacuna of that professionalism. And considering that I was already serving dermatologists, there were a lot of doctors who were evolving along with us during this journey of, because at Galderma, till my sales managership, I already had a rich experience of more than a decade. So I thought, why not to plunge into an industry which is more futuristic? The target audience, I don't have to alter it because these are the same people I've been calling upon day in and out, serving my pharmaceutical skincare products. So why not to give them something which they are looking forward in a much, much organized and professional manner? So that was the, like everybody said, the founder, the ideation comes, any startup starts because there is a pain factor.
Yes.
Okay, there's an area of concern, and then as a founder, our responsibility is to ease out that concern.
Okay, that's good to know. I have been reading your blogs and articles where you have mentioned that the market is huge, and India is just starting out the journey. So can you please give a bit of detail around it, that how big is the market and where is India at the moment?
So as I just mentioned, UK is all ready. It's a cultural thing. Okay. The consumer is well aware. In India, we are just sitting on a tip of an iceberg. In fact, COVID, if you have to take some silver lining out of those dark clouds, it has preponed those markets because of the social media. People were sitting at home. They started connecting globally. They started learning all those digital exercises. And today, the world is shrinking because of this internet and connectivity, the digital access. For example, you are sitting at UK and I'm sitting at Mumbai office, and we are still connecting with each other. So that's the best part of it. This has also happened in aesthetic and corrective dermatology. So somebody performing some aesthetic procedures in UK is well accessed by my Indian consumer. Okay. So the awareness started building up. Our responsibility as an organization was to keep stimulating that awareness, keep conditioning that awareness, keep refining that awareness, because whatever is good in UK might not be good in India for the Indian consumers. It needs to be aligned to the Indian requirement. So the market is huge. We are just starting up. There are corporates. You mentioned about VLCC. I would love to mention about Kaya Limited. It is backed by Marico. It's a listed company now, and they have been serving for more than 2 decades. And they were very, very instrumental in triggering the market, apart from the good, responsible distribution companies like us. But they were also, because they started hiring dermatologists, then they gave that required exposure of cosmetic, or rather aesthetic and corrective dermatology. So it started
Okay.
moving from patients to client. See, we need to
Okay.
understand, when we are talking about aesthetic and corrective dermatology here in India, we are not talking, a lot of people still are, getting aligned to this concept. We are not treating disorders. We are not treating disease. We are treating wellness.
Yes.
But there are certain indications where we are touching the lives of people.
Okay.
Okay, so the larger purpose is touching the lives of people, but then definitely it's a wellness. It is enhancement. We install that required confidence in a consumer through doctors, of course. So Kaya was one of them who started triggering the market, hiring those qualified dermatologists at the centers to the tune of almost 80 to 100 centers. And then eventually other corporates pitching in. They also installed the entrepreneur journey in the mind of dermatologist. So till then, doctors were like doctors. Today, doctors are also thinking like an entrepreneur. They're opening multiple chain clinics. They know, that this is going to be a big thing, and the disposable income is only growing among Indians, both male female working, both partners working. 5 days of rigorous work. So on a weekend, they need something to pamper them. They need also, there is a huge awareness and consciousness that they need to carry well, depending on the appetite of an individual. Every individual, there are different spectrums of India. That's the beauty of India. It's not like in other Western worlds where you have only two segments, rich and not so rich, for example. Okay, in India we have a lot of economic gradients, and depending on the attitude of the consumer, he or she would love to get into this domain of aesthetic and dermatology to look good for our professional as well as personal aspirations.
Yeah, and I think the Korean series are helping out these businesses as well. There
That's
is
that's
a
that's
lot
been one
to
of the
be.
triggering factor.
Yeah,
Again, as you rightly said, we were discussing, the this digital space. Korea is
yeah,
far east. It's
yeah,
not something which is very close to India topographically,
yeah,
but the influence is strong. The K dramas, K-pops, K skincare,
yeah.
everything is it.
Everyone I hear from within peers, within colleagues, within friends, everyone is looking for a glass skin these days. Do you think that that's more of a DNA, or it can be achieved with the technologies? What's your take on that?
Okay, so wonderful. I mean, it's a right question to touch upon because a lot of audience will be keen to understand this. See, we all need to understand every skin is different. Okay, the Korean skin, because of genetic reasons, the way they have been looking after it, it's relatively easy to get a glass skin in Korean skin. Not only Korea, but other Asian skins also. Now, a lot of times we mix these things that we are also Asian country. Definitely, map order or in a topographical manner, we are an Asian country. But I divide Asian countries into two parts. One is the Malaysians, Singapores, the Koreans, maybe Filipinos, and then we have India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. Okay. So in our skin type, we have been doing a lot of research on this because glass skin was trending at one point of time. And, only by seeing at the digital, I mean, it was so popular in the digital space that everybody wanted to have a glass skin. But in our skin is thicker than those, population. We'll not be able to, you know, inculcate all those requirements. It will be very, very challenging in our skin types, in our skin thickness to give glass skin. Our skin doesn't have that reflective index. So even if we do the same procedure, we'll not be able to give or offer, or the doctor will not be able to satisfy the consumer requirement in terms of per se glass skin.
Okay.
It's more genetic, it's the skin thickness or skin thinness in that case, which matters a lot. So the trend is great, but then whether the trend can be aligned into the Indian consumer, it will be challenging.
Let's talk about the process of launching a new device. For instance, when you collaborated with global partners to introduce MCT here, and please feel free to discuss more about MCT, what was the experience like? Like, how do you ensure the device developed abroad delivers results in Indian market, as you were saying, in terms of skin types, reflective index, and the conditions, etc.? What's the process in launching a new device?
Okay. So you asked about specifically MCT, but overall also if you see the process, the core remains same. Okay. So my job basically is to keep exploring technologies. Okay. So when we connect,
Okay.
so there is eventually it has become an international community now. Okay. So I have my own colleagues across. We keep meeting. There are different conferences which are, focusing on different innovations. So we do visit them. We also talk to the doctors who are using it. May not be from India because it's not been launched, but the international ones, what they feel about it. You know, Also we need to see whether this technology is good for the Indian consumer. It might be good, it might be wonderful, but it might not be as good for my Indian consumers. So I need to align to the requirement. I also have to see whether it involves any skin types, because anything which is ablative, anything which is going to stay onto the skin, and particularly the top layer, which is called epidermis, in a very, very, simpler manner, it will be always having a so-called concern in Indian context. We are a tropical country,
Yeah.
sun just beats on us, and then it becomes challenging. There are a lot of incidences of post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So we need to consider all those potential side effects. We need to consider the strength of the device. We need to also consider the areas of improvement of the device, and can it be aligned with obviously refined parameters,
Okay.
because those parameters which are used at a global level for those Caucasian skin might not be good enough for my Indian consumer. And the doctors are very well aware of it. So first job of mine or a responsibility is to aware doctors, to align doctors, and then doctors obviously, once we give them the directional parameters, they can definitely build upon. So the process is simple. If we like the technology, we need to dig deep. We need to understand who all are using it at the global market, how are they using it, whether it is good enough for the Indian doctors, and then eventually, get some key opinion leaders on board, give them that technology with a clear cut mandate of refining those parameters for the Indian consumer. So every technology has a learning curve,
Yes.
right? So then eventually when we have those datas and we are very very sure and convinced about it, then we introduce it. As far as MCT is concerned, I mean, I was many times, it's the gut instinct.
Okay.
And this applies for every entrepreneur. So I was in one of the international congresses, which, I mean, this was a World Congress of Aesthetic Dermatology. And when we visited, the founder is himself is a physician. That gives a lot of confidence, because what we look forward in Skinnovation is the technologies which are backed by science, backed by rational. Okay. And not only trending. I mean, trending is good to an extent, but it needs to also long lasting, because here we are dealing with people. We are dealing with doctors, and they are dealing with eventually, their clients, patients, people. So we don't have a second take on the treatment. So we need to be very, very sure why we are getting it. The founder was himself a physician. A lot of research was already done on it, and the category was very intriguing. This category is very, very exciting, and it is a category which is going to be futuristic globally, which is called regenerative medicine. So we all have been listening about, the body heals on its own
Yeah.
if given proper time. So regenerative medicine is the same stuff. You're not putting something from outside,
Okay.
because when you put something from outside, there is always a cause of concern, what is getting inside, what is the source of it, whether the source is, we need to be 100% sure about the quality aspect of the source, sustainability of it. But when you're talking about your own body mechanism, and you are just stimulating that mechanism to heal faster or to give you something which you are missing upon, this is called regenerative medicine. So basically, at a very, very intercellular level, we are re-establishing the communication between the two cells. So it's like two friends after college, you are not connecting at all. And then there is a sudden invitation for reunion, and that becomes a base.
Okay.
And then from that new union, you start, connecting and engaging yourself once again. So what you have done is you have re-established those old times. So similarly, in regenerative medicine, we are trying to, connect with those two cellular communication, so that they can give you the same kind of results, the same kind of, impact what you used to get in your 20s.
There is always, so if I talk with my parents about this concept and technologies for the skin, there is always a concern around them for safety, like how safe the procedure is. Is any intervention is getting any harm on my skin in the longer term, not only in the shorter term but also in the longer term. So how does that taken care of? Like, is there a research before coming to Indian market, or what is the framework looks like around safety?
So first and foremost, you should go and thank your parents, because they are concerned for you. Many of us, and particularly in India, people still don't take skin very seriously. Skin is the largest organ of the body. We tend to ignore this because it's not life threatening. Okay. Also, skin is the reflection, what is going inside your body.
Okay.
Okay. If you are stressed, it will be shown onto their skin.
Exactly.
If you're going through lack of sleep, it will be shown onto your skin. So skin is very, very important. This is one. Second, obviously, for any technology to be successful in India and in a global arena, first is the safety. Second comes the efficacy. All those manufacturers who are developing this technology, even in their own local countries, the country of origin, what we say, they need to go through a rigorous safety trials. Okay. And only after that, they start, developing this technology. So there are different phases of trials, and eventually they are allowed to introduce in their own local market before they can go on to the international market. So the safety standards are very well established. Unless the device is substandards, they've been only pushed from the aspect of the sales. A good standard manufacturing company will always like to look after the larger picture, which is the consumer first.
As I was reading, you are saying that it's a momentum in the skin innovation and in the industry whole wide, and you have grown skin innovation without the backing of VCs or large pharma giants. That's bold, and that's really good. What's the hardest entrepreneurial decision you have made so far that paid off long term, even if it didn't make sense on paper at that time?
So there will be many challenges, because any journey, entrepreneur journey, will come with challenges, and you need to keep overcoming them step by step. But the biggest will be to stay on the wicket. As they say, if you follow cricket, I don't know, right now also, the Indian team is visiting UK for the test.
Yes.
And I keep
The
telling them,
Leeds match going on in
absolutely.
London.
So I keep telling my team also, the best part one can do is to be on the wicket. The good balls are going to come. And there will be also challenging, bowling conditions. So, but you need to bite the dust. You need to, keep fighting and stay on the wicket. So this is what, because for any startup, or for any entrepreneur, if they are not going with VCs or seed capital, the challenge will be capital.
Yeah.
Particularly an industry where it's a capital intensive business, you need to have funds. Rest all the things can be managed. I'm not saying skills are not important. I'm not saying human resource is not important. What I'm saying is, if you have funds, you have a capital, you can maneuver around it. Put your foot down, don't give up.
Okay. Okay. Now that's a good message to come across. Most startups chase growth, but you have also emphasized on building education system, device reliability, and training programs like SkinQuest. Do you think that slowed you down, or has it actually helped you scaling more sustainably?
See, any business unit would love to have growth,
Okay.
but growth is something which is a byproduct. It cannot be processed. So to reach growth, you need to have those funneling, you need to have those process in place. Now, when we are not selling commodity, we are dealing with consumer, we are dealing with, as I said, we touch lives of people, we make them more confident through doctors, of course. So, and again, when I'm talking about doctors, they are medical profession.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to be very thorough with my scientific aptitude. What I'm talking to them, how are we going to add value to them? What my device does it? Whether it is safe, whether it is efficacious, how much sessions it is going to take to see the desired results, because they also need to be thorough with the subject to tell to the clients. Also in India, now the consumer is getting more aware, and the Google is helping them, may not be in a complete manner, but have the knowledge, which is furthermore difficult because it's dangerous. So they are also going and asking, certain relevant questions about the procedures. So the doctors also needs to be on their toes. And my responsibility is, when we are selling the device, we need to make them aware completely what to do, and importantly, what not to do. So what to expect out of the device, and what the device is not going to offer, because the tall claims is not going to last. Also, when we handhold them in this journey, the objective of the organization is not just selling the device, but also to ensure that the doctor, which is our direct customer or the first touch point, utilize it effectively. If he or she is just buying the device and not utilizing effectively, okay, from a sales point of view, it's done. But from a sense of satisfaction, which you would love to derive from that sales, is not going to come. If they utilize it properly, if they can add smile on their clients, we are happy indirectly, because we have contributed to that smile in some way or the other. Also, it has been seen in our particular case, we have more than around 30 to 35% of the customer, in this case, customer means doctors, are repeat buyers. When you handle them in this journey, and when they see that these people are just not selling the device, but they're also conducting trainings, because this is an evolving thing. Particularly in India, we have such a different skin types.
Okay.
Down south, you'll have different skin types. North, you'll have different skin types. Even in the bigger cities, now all our cities are getting cosmopolitan. So in that case,
Mhm.
variety of skin types. So the doctors also has a learning curve on these technologies. And all these dermatological, treatments, the best part is they're all session based, Rahul. It's not that, it's not a miracle that you take one session and you're done. So the doctors also are aware that they need to start safe and then build on the efficacy.
Okay.
Okay, so we always have those second, third chances because it's a session-based treatment. So 3 session, 4 session, 6 sessions. So the first session can be the most safest session. They can compromise on the efficacy, but they cannot afford to compromise on safety. So these nuances of these technologies, what not to do, what to do, and how best they can offer this, is been trained by us and on a consistent basis, because education in this era, the overall aesthetic and the corrective dermatology is growing globally. There are a lot of updates which are coming in. So I cannot say, I've trained you once. There are different ways of dealing with things in a different manner at a different time. So those keeps coming in and we keep feeding them to make them better in terms of utilizing the technology. In fact, this is one of the differentiation factor why the doctors feel that innovation adds value, because we are not in selling, we are in creating value.
Yes. Okay. That's interesting. And I always say to my friends that good things always takes time. So it will take time. And I think this is what we are going ahead with. For younger entrepreneurs who are entering this space, what's a harsh truth about building a healthcare tech company or skin innovation in India that you wish someone told you 10 years ago?
That it's going to be challenging. You need to be patient. You need to be determined. It's ruthless out there, but eventually you need to keep serving. So that's something, once we know, then you don't. I mean, the small challenges don't deter you. You are mentally very well prepared.
Okay. Moving to the next section now, which is leadership and team growth. Building a company in a niche tech field requires a strong team. How do you go about building your team at Skinnovation? What qualities do you look for when bringing someone on board to an innovation driven company? Because it's very hard to align the talent with the vision and then retain that talent for a longer period of time. And in my experience, it's always people and the team where you can grow your company with. So, what was your mantra, let's say?
So it was simple. It was close communication. The belief system needs to be transferred. People should buy your vision. That's the most important part. It cannot be, a one-sided affair. They should start feeling that it's been inclusive. Okay. I was blessed with a team when I started Skinnovation. There were a lot of good people around me. They contributed to the organization, and the sense of belonging to the organization is a very key element. Obviously, when we are talking about beliefs, it is an ongoing process. We need to keep reinforcing that time and again. There will be opportunities as a founder you'll get, and every founder gets it, to showcase this, reinforcement, to showcase these beliefs, to again, install these beliefs. So it's a consistent process. I mean, we have team members who have been serving this organization for more than 14 years, 15 years since inception. Okay. So the culture is very, very important.
Okay.
When they feel that they have been valued, when they feel that there is a value addition in them, and it's been, organization is creating a win-win situation. And I'm not just talking about monetary benefits here. I'm talking about a holistic, approach. There is a high probability that they'll be part of that vision. Once you do that, so that core team needs to be, made accountable to pass on this vision to the last person of the organization. Now, the major challenge for any organization starts when they start growing. It will happen to us also. It has happened to us also. Okay. Because when you are a compact organization, you can always walk up to the person and, give a pat on the back. When the size of the organization keeps growing, there are different layers which starts coming into the organization. Then it becomes more challenging compared to a compact organization, because the same passion, the same belief system, what you want, it should be seen that it is not lost during that, layering.
Okay.
So the best part is keep talking to them, keep connecting. A classical example was COVID days. When COVID happened, and I keep telling this to, everyone, and I take a pride in this, that, when it happened, many in this particular aesthetic and corrective dermatology domain, there were a lot of companies which are bigger than us, which were serving the industry since many years. They were quite experienced than us, but somehow they were absconding. One email that the organization is going to shut down, and they were done. One email stating that because of the COVID, we will not be able to give anything or look after you. That was been the common practice, including the direct multinational companies which were part in India. They suddenly shut down their shops overnight. On the other hand, we made a conscious decision along with our HR team that we will face the consequences. So the best part was connecting with every team member.
Mhm.
At that moment of time, for example, 200 odd team members, we connected, we brief them about the current situation, what's going around.
Mhm.
We tell them what will be the pathway of the company and how we together is going to come out of this. So buying that inclusivity always helps. Many times as a founder, we feel that, okay, it's a materialistic world outside. It's not the same kind of generation which used to contribute, over the beyond the duty hours. Things have changed, but today also everybody is not in that zone. There are a lot of people. If you find the right talent, if you install the belief system in them, and importantly, keep doing that with your actions also, not only words, then those people, everybody responded to us during that COVID times. In fact, after the COVID, when we visited some conferences and we were participating, we tend to feel that customer don't observe. There were a lot of doctors walked up to me and said, Kalpesh, what is the difference between Skinnovation and other companies? I can see the same faces pre-COVID era and the post-COVID era. So that was the reassurance even for the customers that in spite of the biggest challenge on the earth so far, company, these people were together.
As you have rightly mentioned, that the companies grows with people, and people needs to stay in an organization to bring a real value, which was held in the vision initially. Um, what did you find any one or two strategies which you would like to share, with as you were speaking with HR? What were the strategy, one or two main or core strategy which you started and that worked out very well in retaining the talent?
So we have an empowerment program.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, we first and foremost, there is a communication and transparency which flows from top to the end. The second important thing is we have been dissecting, we have been diagnosing what is the requirement of our own people to produce better or a desired results, what we expect, whether it is the in-house, in-office team members or the sales, revenue generators for us. So we keep updating and upgrading their knowledge. There is a communication process. There are different programs which they put into it. Very recently, for a group of 20 important team members, the sales revenue generator team, we had a program for effective closing skills. So these are the aspects what they also look after. See, this life has become very mechanical for everyone. Many times, you want to do certain things, you need to sharpen your skills, but you don't have time or you don't have the required support. So if an organization like us can come forward and add value in that sense, maybe at least by choice or by force, somebody is investing those 20 hours, 2 days, sitting and learning about the closing skills. It's not that, they might not be knowing about it, but it also reinforces, maybe it refines them and it helps eventually. So one thing is very common, we need to keep them engaged positively, helping them to be better professionals. And from a long-term point of view, I'm very, very clear. You need to invest in people. Don't think what will happen to them after a year. Don't perceive it as a cost. Because that gentleman or a team member stays within the organization, even for 2 years, even for 3 years, they're going to produce the best results for you. As an entrepreneur, we cannot be insecure.
Yeah, yeah. It's I was saying it's people first approach, isn't it? That always works well with the vision alignment. Moving on to competition, market risk and strategy section. The dermatology tech market in India is getting more competitive with new players and devices coming up. How does Skinnovation stay ahead of the competition? What's your strategy to differentiate your offering in an increasingly crowded market? If you want to share. one or two points in the strategy vision.
So keep it simple, first and foremost, control the controllables.
Okay.
So if you start focusing on competition, you'll be losing your core. What has brought you here? I also understand what has brought us here might not take us there, as they say. We need to first keep updating and upgrading ourselves. This is something which is controllable. I cannot control the competition, the good ones and not so good ones also. Also keep raising the bar. Keep our customer is simple. They deal with science, they deal with logic, they will deal with rational, they are white collar professionals. So if you talk sense, obviously they'll rally around you. If you give them a good product, good service, train them well, eventually, making them, I mean, in a business context, helping them to get the return on investment. In a non-business concept, am I adding value to the clinic whereby the practice is going to be better? Am I going to add value which will help them to see more satisfied clients? We are doing our job. So instead of focusing something which is external or non-controllable, I like to focus within.
What are some of the biggest risks or challenges you foresee for the aesthetic device industry in next few years? As you were mentioning that there could be more competition, good ones, and how are you preparing to navigate them?
The challenging, as you rightly said right in the beginning, if you recollect about glass skin.
Yes.
Now that this is a challenge for the tech partner as well as the physician. Because the consumer is going to demand something looking at those social media influence. And unfortunately, fortunately, if we are not going to, offer them that, because there is no device which can offer you glass skin on our skin types, you know, at least not to that extent of what, the Koreans will get it. Now, this needs to be also made palatable. We need to make people understand that why this is not going to happen. First, the doctors, and I'm sure the doctors will eventually have to face this challenge and communicate this wholeheartedly to the consumer. So these are the challenges. Expectation management, in one word, if I need to put it, expectation management of the consumer and expectation management of the customer.
Okay.
And also, this industry works on novelty.
Yes.
So everybody wants something which is different. Now, this is not something which is, this is technology. It takes time. Also, it is not about the technology. It needs to also go through the grind of those difficult clinical trials, because we are dealing with human beings. So the safety, efficacy aspect. So there is a timeline for everything. So we are always under positive pressure, which is a good thing. It's a good challenge to offer something new every time to clinics. And likewise, clinics are under pressure to give something to the clients,
Okay.
because our attention time is getting shortened. So the clients, if they do some couple of times the same procedure, they also don't want to repeat those same procedure. So they always want something, new should be offered to them. So the physician is under positive pressure to offer something to them. The physician depends on a companies like us to offer some new innovative solutions. We are under positive pressure because we don't manufacture something here right now. Or even if we start manufacturing, it takes its own time, to go through the grind.
Seeing it as a national change, which is the momentum building up in Skinnovation, which policies change you think government of India needs to bring to drive innovation in this particular space, or if there aren't any necessary? Are there any new frontiers or emerging techs in aesthetic dermatology which you are particularly excited about the national exploration with government of India including?
So I'm an apolitical individual, and I need to be. So in that case, if you see, the government India has already started taking some initiatives, and I like to give this with an example. So the first things first is, many of our industry is aware of, the consumer might not be. So there is a free trade agreement between South Korea and India. Okay, so all these South Korea devices, if they are falling into medical devices, which in this category, yes, because we deal with doctors and physicians, they have an FDA. Okay, likewise, if you have been aware, we are in a process of having a FTA with EU, which is going to end in December, which they are going to, close it by December. So again, there will be a free trade agreement between the two countries. So it is not only about saving money, but it is also about bringing those technology much earlier than they would have come to India now. So they have already taken the initiatives. I personally feel skill development is one area, and from a larger segment, the doctors are well trained in India because they attend different conferences. They attend different events. There are a lot of programs which are run by companies, to train them well, like us also. But uh, the support staff for the doctors, they still need to be uplifted. So the skill development program, which government of India do drives, but it needs to be very specific, maybe to this particular industry if possible. That is one. AI is going to be future. So something which we can do it in this space in collaboration with the government of India, and their encouragement or empowerment, that will be a very, very big step. They have also initiated one important thing to stop substandard devices in India, to have a fair field
Right.
and the consumer protection. They have started registration of medical devices. So earlier, anybody would have got up and got some devices from an international markets and would have started business in India. Today, the registration is mandatory.
Okay.
So any device, including a thermometer, if it is getting imported, it needs to go through that registration process, the safety standards, where it is manufactured, you know, uh, what about the company, what are the quality standards they implement in their execution process. Everything has been covered well. So this started last year, and now by and large every device company has aligned to this requirement. So these are good steps in a larger interest of the consumer.
Moving to the next rapid fire question. Please free to answer this in a word or a sentence.
Okay.
Which is the one technology in aesthetic you absolutely can't live without now?
I think Q switched NDX. So this technology looks after the pigmentary disorders.
Okay.
Okay, and India, as I said, it's a tropical country. We are also fanatic for skin lightening. There are a lot of pigmentary disorders on a clinical end also. So this is the most versatile technology I must have come across in a decade or two, which we cannot uh, skip. I would love to have it anytime, any given time.
Have you personally tried every device that Skinnovation has launched, or and which one was the most interesting or surprising in field of tech?
Not all, but some of them we do try. Not only because we require it or not, but sometimes it is very, very important that you should go through the technology, what it offers, before we introduce it or before we put it across to the doctors and then the consumer. So there is a muscle tuning concept which is building up. Okay. So, and a lot of Indians are not still aware about the importance of having muscle.
Okay.
As we age, the muscle depletes. And if there is a technology which helps me to maintain that, and I'm not saying that this technology is a replacement of a gym or a walk, we need to keep doing it. But eventually, this adds to that stimuli. So, there is a technology by the name called Wonder, which helps you to, build muscle. So, this is one technology I like to do.
Okay. Chai or coffee, what fuels your long work days and innovation sessions? What is more beneficial to the skin?
I think balance of both.
If you weren't an entrepreneur in the dermatology tech space, what alternate career you could see yourself in, even in an alternate universe? So just wild guess.
Okay. I would have loved to. There are many, but I'll share a few ones. One, I would love to have become a teacher. I like sharing knowledge, so would have been a good speaker around. Uh, I would love to be a podcaster. So these are the few, I would love to.
Okay.
In the current arena, podcaster is the hot peak.
Okay. Interesting. That brings us to the end of this insightful episode. Thank you so much, Kalpesh, for giving us insights around innovation and what's happening in the dermatology space around India. And thank you for sharing your journey and those valuable insights on blending innovation with safety and efficacy for Indian patients. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you have learned something new about the world of dermatology tech. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to the to the podcast and sharing it with the others who might find it interesting and useful. Until next time, stay curious, keep innovating, and stay true to your values. Goodbye. Thank you. Signing off.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.